that whole thing. This is all yummy.
Like a defeated army, the ocean retreated, vanishing in the blink of an eye. Moments later, the ocean returned with world-shaking force. But here's the haunting truth. The warning signs were right in front of us, ignored, misunderstood, and even filmed as entertainment. Please like, subscribe, and comment on Disaster Register, where we bring you true and tragic tales. December 26, 2004. A colossal earthquake strikes the west coast of Aceh in northern Sumatra. The tremendous impact sends massive waves racing across the Indian Ocean. Tourists watched in awe as the sea pulled back from the beach with alarming speed, unaware that it was a warning for a catastrophe about to happen. Hours later, coastlines from Indonesia to Africa are changed forever. The deadliest part of this tsunami wasn't just the waves. It was how unprepared humanity was, despite decades of scientific warnings. The western coast of Sumatra may look peaceful from the surface, but its depths hide a violent secret. One of the world's most dangerous tectonic boundaries. Here, the Indian plate meets the Burma plate in a chaotic embrace. Slowly but relentlessly, the Burma plate forces the Indian plate beneath itself in a crushing process known as subduction. The result of this collision is the Sunda Trench, a deep scar that mars the ocean floor for thousands of kilometers. As the Indian plate sinks deeper under the weight of the Burma plate, enormous pressure constantly builds up along the subduction zone, and when it finally breaks loose, terror is unleashed upon the world in the form of a catastrophic megathrust earthquake. Smaller quakes are known to last for only seconds, but a megathrust earthquake doesn't follow this rule. This was the case on December 26, 2004. A 9.3 magnitude world-level disaster had unleashed its wrath for several minutes at a depth of 30 kilometers beneath the west coast of Sumatra. The ocean floor was forcefully shifted after failing to endure the massive pressure wreaking havoc beneath it. An unimaginable amount of seismic energy had broken free from the ocean depths and was quickly making its way to the surface. Within moments, mighty tsunami waves up to 30 meters high were speedily making their way to the surrounding coastline, ready to swallow everything in their way. The cruel irony? Many people who died weren't victims of nature. They were victims of not knowing what to do when nature gave them one last warning. Kilometers away, beaches along the Indian Ocean were crowded with families who were enjoying the holidays. Many tourists had brought along their children to play and enjoy the scenic views of the blues. People could be seen everywhere, busy living in the moment. They blissfully recorded what they thought would be lasting memories with their camcorders. Little did they know that they were capturing their final moments on tape. A haunting testimony that would later show the world how a calm, joyful day quickly transformed into a disaster that would never be forgotten. The lack of an Indian Ocean-wide tsunami warning system at the time sealed the fate of so many people. Unlike the Pacific, the region had no coordinated network that could detect the waves in advance and alert coastal communities. From the moment the ocean pulled back till the first catastrophic waves formed, millions remained clueless of the disaster that was about to hit them. Although there was a delay of up to several hours between the earthquake and the impact of the tsunami, almost all the victims were taken by surprise. As the tsunami drew near unsuspecting coastlines, the ocean acted strangely. The shoreline suddenly retreated along many beaches, and the water was pulled far back. In its place were exposed coral reefs that left many fish stranded on the sand. This was supposed to be the final warning. Something horrible was coming, but people misinterpreted the warning as a rare and fascinating spectacle. Locals ran out to the exposed seabed, unable to resist the allure of fish flopping on the ground. Tourists took pictures and videos of the strange phenomenon, unaware that the ocean was rushing back with unstoppable momentum. It's hard not to ask, if a simple public awareness campaign had existed, would thousands of these deaths have been avoided? Just 20 minutes after the earthquake, Banda Aceh, the closest major city along the coastline of Aceh province, Indonesia, was hit by the first surges of the tsunami. Many locals were still exploring the exposed seabed while collecting stranded fish when they were swept away by the ocean waves that rushed in violently. But this was just the beginning of a nightmare. Minutes later, two large black-colored steep waves appeared over the horizon. These massive natural weapons of mass destruction traveled deep into the city and left nothing but extreme destruction in their wake. Located about 500 kilometers from the epicenter, the popular resort beaches of Thailand were packed full with tourists who were unaware of the impending doom. Just like at Banda Aceh, the water drained from the coastline, leaving a spectacle of stranded fish and boats littered on the sand. Then, without warning, the ocean came back with roaring fury, swallowing up locals and tourists as it slammed forcefully into the beach. Yachts and boats were violently lifted by the waves in a violent display that nobody could stand against. The island country of Sri Lanka is located about 1,700 kilometers from Sri Lanka, but the distance did little to save it from the wrath of the tsunami. For 2 hours after the earthquake struck, the waves maintained their cataclysmic power and hit Sri Lanka with tremendous force. Coastal villages and fishing ports were quickly overwhelmed before the populace could even comprehend what had hit them. The first wave that hit the coastal cities and resorts was only a warning. The second and third surges that came after were much higher and carried overwhelmingly destructive power that was much greater than that of the first wave. Streets were flooded without mercy, and markets were overturned. Even the hotels that lined up along the beaches were not spared. Buildings that held strong against the first wave immediately collapsed under the unstoppable might of the later waves. Sri Lanka witnessed one of the deadliest single events caused by the tsunami. The Queen of the Sea passenger train, operating between Maradana and Matara, was packed full with passengers when the waves struck. Seawater along with tons of debris engulfed the carriages before ultimately derailing them. More than 1,700 people lost their lives in the devastating incident that left its mark in history as the worst rail disaster ever recorded. The tsunami spread a domain of death and chaos over many regions as the waves kept surging in and out with tremendous force. Whirlpools formed in bays and did not spare fishing vehicles and cargo ships from their deadly onslaught. Powerful currents removed anchored boats and totally destroyed docks and waterfront facilities. Those who survived the first waves were forced into a life and death race that drove them upwards. People scrambled to higher floors, rooftops, and even trees, desperate to escape the grim reaper that was the surging waves. Locals and tourists alike hung on for dear life and watched helplessly as entire neighborhoods were swallowed up. Right before their eyes, the entire landscape was transformed into a scene of utter devastation that few could comprehend. Some survived by sheer luck, but luck is not a disaster plan. Why did it take nearly 250,000 deaths to force the world to take tsunami warnings seriously? Nothing lasts forever, and the waves eventually receded, but the death toll they left behind was staggering. Nearly 230,000 people lost their lives across 14 countries that were affected by the deadly waves, from Indonesia and Thailand to Sri Lanka, India, and even the east coast of Africa in Somalia. Entire communities were wiped away in minutes, leaving behind inexplicable grief on a global scale. In the aftermath, the world responded in a glorious display of solidarity. Relief teams, medical workers, and humanitarian organizations from all over the world were mobilized for one of the largest international aid efforts in history. Search and recovery operations went on for weeks, as survivors searched desperately for their missing loved ones, while the global community worked hard to provide food, shelter, and medical care to the millions of people that were displaced. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami taught the world a painful lesson. The The tragedy forced the entire world to recognize the need for better preparation in case such an incident ever repeats itself. Within a few years, the Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System was established, creating a regional network of seismic stations, buoys, and communication links that are designed to detect tsunamis and alert vulnerable coastlines. Public education also became a top priority. Survivors' stories paint a vivid picture of how recognizing natural warning signs, such as the feeling of a strong earthquake or seeing the sea rapidly withdraw, could mean the difference between life and death. Campaigns across the region now preach a simple message. If the ocean ever pulls back, don't wait. Run to higher ground. Governments and planners also began work on reshaping coastlines in vulnerable locations. Hazard maps were drawn, evacuation routes were marked, and safe shelters were identified. While no system can stop the force of nature, better preparation and awareness now give coastal communities a fighting chance against the kind of devastation that struck in December 2004. But here's the chilling reality. The Indian Ocean may not be done with us. And next time, will we really be ready? Or will history repeat itself? December 26, 2004 is a day that will go down in history for generations to come. A hidden fault deep beneath the sea unleashed a chain of destruction that reshaped entire nations. In minutes, coastlines were remapped and hundreds of thousands of lives were lost. Today, science, warning systems, and public education offer protection, but the memory lives on as the strongest lesson. If a day comes when the sea suddenly vanishes, don't linger or look. Run uphill. And yet, nearly 20 years later, coastlines remain crowded, warning signs are still ignored, and governments are still underfunded for disaster response. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.